Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss skin. See, while considering the skin, it has two major functions because it is an integral part of integumentary system as well as spatial senses. See, while coming to the integumentary function, it used to eliminate out or extract out those particulate matters or the substances which may not be required for the body, or we can say that those waste metabolites, it will be removed from the or removed by the skin. And while coming to the spatial senses, see, it is a part of spatial senses because it receives the senses. It may be from touch, it may be from heat, or it may be from any other sources. And the skin is the largest organ of the human body. While considering the human skin, where exactly it is available? See, it is the most outer cover which covers the human body. So we can say that it is present throughout the body, or it cover up all those essential or the delicate organs as well as the bones, the ligaments, the muscles and everything. While considering humans, this is the largest organ of the integumentary system. It has got more than different seven layers of the epidermal tissues which guards the muscles, bones, ligaments and the internal delicate organs which are made up of the smooth muscle. Types of the skin. There are basically two types of skin can be observed according to the presence of hair or absence of hair. So first, hairy skin, and second, that is hairless skin. Hairless skin also can be known as glabrous skin, where the hairs will be absent or it will not be there on the side of the skin. See, skin directly interferes with the environment. So it plays a major role in maintenance of immune system. So it protects the body against the pathogens, or we can say that microbes, as well as it prevents the loss of water. While considering the other functions, it provides insulation, it regulates temperature, carry out and receives the sensation, even it synthesizes the vitamin D as well as it protects the vitamin B folates. So it has got numerous functions. In many instances where skin may undergo rupture or damage due to the injury, in that cases skin will be healed automatically by forming the scar tissue, or you can see that those black color scar will be formed on the upper layer of the skin. That is a healing part of the skin tissues. In humans, skin pigmentation generally varies among the populations, and the skin type can ranging from the dry to oily. Generally, the skin may be dry or oily in major instances. As you can see here, the structure of skin. It has got major three layers, that is first epidermis, dermis and hypodermis. Today we will see these two, the major one, that is the epidermis and the dermis layer. You can see the most outer layer which is directly in contact with the environment or the atmosphere, that is epidermis layer. Next layer, that is the dermis layer, which is just present posterior to the epidermis layer, or we can say that just inferior to the epidermis layer. The below, that is the hypodermis layer. In that hypodermis layer, the blood vessels will be present. While considering the blood vessels, it will be present throughout hypodermis as well as dermis, whereas epidermis may not have a direct blood supply, but it may absorb oxygen from the atmosphere and it may get dissolved into the epidermis layer. Other than these three layers, there will be a presence of those hair follicles, sweat glands, which are responsible for the perspiration or to eliminate out any substances or the waste metabolites from the body. Other than these two, even fats will be present just below the hair follicles, and it will be present in dermis as well as in hypodermis. Even there will be a presence of the connective tissues. So skin is composed of primary three layers, but today we will discuss these two, which are an important aspect while considering B-pharmacy, human anatomy and physiology: the epidermis and the dermis. Epidermis, which is the most outer layer of the skin, or we can say that entire human body is covered with the help of epidermis. Here, this specific layer is waterproof, as well as it protect or wrap over the body surface, which also serves as a barrier to infection. So there will not be any chances that microbes or any pathogens can directly enter through the skin. And epidermis layer may not contain the blood vessels, and generally their deepest layers will be nourished exclusively by diffused oxygen. It will be diffused directly from the surrounding air or from the atmosphere. So this layer will not get oxygen from blood vessels, but it may receive it from the atmosphere. The main types of the cells which make up the epidermis are keratinocytes, melanocytes, Langerhans cells and the Merkel cells. Remember these four: keratinocytes, melanocytes, Langerhans cells as well as Merkel cells. It helps in maintain the body temperature. While considering the body temperature, it is adjusted with the loss of the water or extra water or the fluid from the skin. While considering epidermis layer, further it can be subdivided into or according to the presence of layer. First, that is the stratum corneum layer. Next one, that is stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum and stratum basal. And you can see here those layers here in this diagram. The stratum corneum, which contains the corneocytes and the most outer layer. Those corneocytes are generally dead cells. Next layer, that is the stratum lucidum, following by stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, stratum basal and the basement membrane. And further, after the basement membrane, there will be a presence of the dermis layer, which is the second layer. We will discuss that stratum corneum. So it is the most outer layer of the epidermis, and it is made up of those corneocytes, which are basically dead cells, and it acts as a rate limiting barrier. While considering the rate limiting barrier, because it may have certain limitations while going with the movement of substances or the chemical components in both the ways, inwards as well as outwards. So the movement will be restricted and the specific, and it will be regulated by the stratum corneum. Here, these corneocytes are embedded in a lipid matrix composed of the ceramides, cholesterol, and the fatty acids. The stratum corneum functions to form a barrier which protects the underlying tissues from any kind of bacterial or the pathogenic or the pathologic infection, as well as it prevents the dehydration, as well as any kind of stress which is produced by chemicals or the mechanical. Stratum corneum contains a dense network of the keratin, which is a protein or a type of protein which helps to keep the skin hydrated, right? So here the hydration or the hydration will be maintained by the preventing the water evaporation. So the evaporation of water will be regulated and controlled by the stratum corneum. So the dehydration can be retarded, as well as it maintains the skin or the stratum corneum hydrated. Even it helps into the absorption of water. This layer is responsible for the stretchy properties of the skin. As you can feel here that the skin has got specific function or the property, that is the stretching. While stretching the muscles or the epidermis layer, the major role belongs to the stratum corneum, which has got elasticity. So it allows to further stretch the skin as on required. Next layer, that is the dermis layer. The dermis layer is just beneath the epidermis, or the just inferior side there will be a presence of dermis layer, which is made up of the epithelial tissues, and it provides cushions to the body from any kind of stress as well as from the strain. It is tightly connected to the epidermis layer by a basement membrane. It also harbors many nerve endings that provides the sense of touch and heat. So previous functions, that is for epidermis and dermis, was mostly dedicated for their integumentary function. Here, dermis layer provides the sensation. While considering the receptors which are present in epidermis layer, further carried out into the dermis layer, and here in cases of dermis layer there will be those nerve endings will be present. Those nerve endings receives the signal from the senses or from any kind of touch or any kind of pressure or any kind of substances. So here further those senses will be, or the sensations will be carried out by those nerve endings up to the brain through the spinal cord with the help of the nerves. It contains the hair follicles, sweat glands, sebaceous glands, apocrine glands, lymphatic vessels, and blood vessels. In cases of epidermis, the blood vessels were not there. But here, in case of dermis, you can see those blood vessels. Even you can see sweat glands which are responsible for the perspiration, which is ultimately arranged or set up for to remove any kind of substances or the waste metabolites or the toxin materials from the body. Lymphatic vessels are available to drain out the excess amount of fluid which may be present in surrounding the skin tissues. The blood vessels in the dermis provides the nourishment and waste removal from its own cells as well as from the stratum basal of the epidermis. It is structurally divided into two areas. A superficial area which is just adjacent to the epidermis layer, or they are called as papillary region, and a deep thicker area which is known as a reticular region, and the same we will see here in diagram. See, here you can see the layers of the dermis. The most superior one, that is the epidermis. Next, once it completes, or those 5 different layers will be completed by the basal layer. After that, there will be a presence of those 2 specific layers, that is the deeper layer and the superficial layer. The deeper layers are made up of dense connective tissues, and you can see certain stretch marks on it, whereas the superficial layer, which are just underneath or below the epidermis, which is made up of the loose connective tissue. You can see here the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous layer, that is the hypodermis. In that case of dermis, you can see the reticular layer here. See, it is visible now. You can see those dermal papillae, which is supplied with the blood vessels, as well as those hair follicles and the epidermal cells. So this is all about the skin or the human skin. Thank you.